Wait, what about weird? Hello, my name is Elena.
And I'm Echo.
And this is our podcast, What About Weird, where we discuss all things weird from cryptids and aliens to strange science and unhinged history. Today I'm going to be talking about a strange case out of the Isle of Man. To start out, I'm going to ask you, what do you know about the mongoose?
I know absolutely nothing about mongoose.
Okay.
Mongoose is the plural, right? No, it's not mongooses or something fucking stupid.
The plural is mongooses,
Oh, no.
but because everybody hates that, it's generally accepted mongoose.
Okay.
And also it's funnier because everyone wants to call it a mongoose, not a mongooses. So correct English is mongooses. That is terrible to say. It's mongoose.
But why is the plural of moose and not mooses then? It's like I saw
Is it moose?
a herd of moose. Yeah,
I don't know.
like the singular is the
I
plural.
thought it was mooses. What? Okay, here we go. Here we go. We're
Moose
Googling
is
stuff
moose, mongoose is mongooses, goose is geese. We love English. And we're 1 minute and 30 seconds in when we're already off topic.
Already? Okay, I type in what is the plural, and the first thing that comes up is moose.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right, it is moose. I can accept moose, not moose. Meese. But no, it is mongooses and not mongoose. As far as I'm concerned, it's mongoose. According to Merriam-Webster, a mongoose is a long, slender, carnivorous mammal that chiefly resides in Africa, Southern Europe, and Asia. They're ferret-sized, agile, typically with non-retractable claws, short legs, long tails, usually brown or gray, sometimes with bands or stripes on them. Despite common beliefs, they're not related as closely related to ferrets. They're more closely related to meerkats. And their closest relative is the civet.
Well, I love a meerkat, so they sound cute. I think I've seen photos.
They are cute. They do have like the sideways eyes. Some of them have the sideways eyes like goats do, though.
Oh.
Which I'm like,
Weird, okay.
Mongoose chiefly feed on small animals such as insects, worms, birds, snakes, and rodents. There are two main subtypes. I will not be pronouncing the names. It's not important. And I can't pronounce scientific names. Which is probably why I didn't do good as a wildlife biologist. So, a few facts about them. They can run up to 20 miles an hour or 40 kilometers an hour, which is almost as fast as a coyote or the average dog that's not bred for speed, and faster than most people. They can live 10 to 17 years. They're resistant to most snake venom. They're excellent swimmers. They have been known to go into wars with other bands of mongoose. So like there's a tribe of mongoose. I'm not sure what you call a group of them. But there's a tribe of them. There's another tribe. They go to war with each other. So they are known to hold wars. And they're considered a very chatty group of animals. But they're not chatty in the way we're about to discuss. So let's get into the strange case of Jeff the talking mongoose.
Brilliant.
I'm very proud of my intro. I worked very hard on it. I spent 3 days researching mongoose. I didn't want to bog the whole episode down with mongoose facts. The Irving family lived in a farmhouse called Dorish Cashin on the Isle of... Dorish Cashin.
Okay.
Is how I, as an American, pronounce it. I'm not sure how someone on the Isle of Man would pronounce it.
The Isle of Man is where?
It's
part of Scotland or Ireland?
It's
one of those, right?
I have it written down somewhere here. It's between England and Ireland.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And the I mentioned this later on, but the language of the Isle of Man is called Manx or Manx Gaelic, which is a form of Gaelic.
Okay.
Which is now sort of died off. There's no one left from my research that is a native speaker of Manx. Mm-hmm. But also, I love a place with a name.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that earlier. Like, why are there... My house is called Dorish Cashin. My house is called whatever. Yeah. And I think it's because it's easier than being like, if you're like, well, my house has a name if you're in a rural area, then number 3 whatever drive. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, if you're...
I wouldn't name my house.
Me too. But if you're like in the middle of nowhere, rather than being like such and such road, if you just go, how do I get, you know, how do I get to such and such road? If you're like, how do I get to Red River Ranch or whatever? Mm-hmm. They can be like, oh, you're just going to go this way and that way, instead of, okay, what's the name of this? Now, what's the name of that? And what's the name, you know. But I love a house with a name. So the father of the Irving family, James Irving, was a piano salesman that lost work due to World War I, and the mother, Margaret, was a dressmaker. They had 2 children that had moved out, and a 13-year-old daughter by the name of Vori, who still lived with them. They worked the farm mostly by themselves due to a labor shortage at the time. They lived in relative peace until the fall of 1931, when strange things started to happen. It started with knocking and tapping, and it slowly progressed into disembodied talking, and it just kept going from there. The family dubbed the whatever it was Jack, as it started to grow a personality, but the thing decided that it didn't like the name Jack, and it preferred Jeff, spelled G-E-F.
G-E-F.
G-E-F. Dorish Cashin, the farmhouse where Jeff resided, was an ancient farmstead, even though the house wasn't that old, but the land was. It was notoriously fairy-filled on a desolate isle, and it was about 700 feet above sea level between England and Ireland. Mm-hmm. One night in September of 31, after all of this tapping and knocking started, a creature let out a series of growls from the upstairs attic. The Irving family was very confused about this, and they went up to see what was going on, and the growls slowly started turning into gurgling noises as they were talking. They were like, what is that? The father, James Irving, would later describe it as sounding like a baby trying to talk. You know, when a baby is talking to you, but it's not saying words.
Yeah, they're like making those gurgling noises and being like, ah, bah, 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 bah.
yeah, like I'm forming the syllables, but I can't put the words together. Uh-huh. And fascinated with this and realizing it sounds like a baby trying to talk. Mm-hmm. The Irvings were trying to teach it English. They'd hear it make an animal noise, and then they would say the animal. So they'd hear like barking, and they'd imitate it and then go dog. Like, that's one thing I read somewhere. Or they'd hear like, you know, a cat's meow and go cat, and like slowly adding to it, teaching it how to speak.
So these are animal noises that are coming from actual animals, or this is the
coming
thing
from
that's imitating?
Coming from the thing in the attic.
Okay. So it knew how to mimic animal noises, but then they're telling it, like, oh, you're mimicking a cat. That's what a cat is. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was reading. And they eventually got it to parrot words and then slowly start forming its own sentences. And this creature that had named himself Jeff said that he was very grateful, and he said, for years I could understand all that was being said, but when I tried to talk, I couldn't until you taught me.
Oh, that's actually really cute.
I think it's really sweet, but also I think it's interesting that it's like you had to teach me how to talk. Which, so far, this is sounding like poltergeist or like a ghost, right?
Right.
But normally these things show up and are like, hey, I know how to talk. Hey, I'm here.
Right, and it's one thing if it, like, knew a different language and you had to teach it. Mm-hmm. The language that you speak, I don't know, were they English speakers?
They were speaking English,
okay.
But later on they did start teaching him other languages. The father, James Irving, knew a bunch of different languages and would teach him that. And so Jeff, at one point, learned how to speak Manx, and I think somewhere I have a list of, let's see, English, some Russian, Manx, Hebrew, Welsh, Hindi, Flemish, or Hindustani, Flemish, Italian, and Arabic, which were
a lot of languages.
Mostly languages that the father spoke. Uh-huh. They had taught him this. But
right.
they were...
So it's not like this being, though, that knows how to speak, like, French or whatever, and you're teaching it English. It doesn't know language at all. You were having to teach it, like, the fundamentals
which I think
of
is
language.
very interesting. That they're teaching it language. It started out as animal noises, turned into baby noises.
Right.
And then they're teaching it English. They recognized that, which, a lot of people have thoughts about that, of you're teaching it English, you're putting these... We'll get into theories and stuff later. Mm-hmm. But I just thought it was interesting that they taught Jeff languages and meanings of stuff. So now that it could communicate, it's this thing known as Jeff could communicate. He started communicating full force, no stopping him. Chatty Cathy over here. He claimed to be an 83-year-old spirit in the form of a mongoose, which is why I brought up mongoose in the beginning. So he claimed to be in the form of a mongoose.
So he has a physical body that's a mongoose, or like his spirit looks like a mongoose?
That's very unclear. There's a lot of things that are very physical about him. Later on we'll get into it, but there's some times where he writes stuff, or he'll steal food, he'll kill animals, but he zips around. Sometimes his voice seems to be all over the house. Sometimes it's just in one place.
But it seems like he does seem to have some sort of physical form, and it's probably a mongoose.
Yeah, because later on there are people that claim to have seen him. There's a supposed picture of him, but he seems to sort of be able to go between the two.
Okay.
Yeah, so he claimed to be an 83-year-old spirit in the form of mongoose. I don't know if his spirit was 83 years old, or he was 3 years old when he became a spirit. Mm-hmm. And he said he had come all the way from India via Egypt, come through India, Egypt, all the way to the Isle of Man. He could speak many languages, and he seemed to have quite the thirst for knowledge. He would ask questions about things. What's this? What's that? He would read the newspaper in the mornings over the father's shoulder, just kind of inquisitive about everything. Mm-hmm. What's this? What's that? Why do you do that? Jeff was the self-proclaimed 8th wonder of the world and an extra special mongoose. He talked in a very high but distinct voice. One researcher later on would describe it as, one researcher that came to the house would describe it as 2 octaves above a woman's voice. And I think that if he was a mongoose, he was indeed a very special mongoose. He would get up to all kinds of shenanigans that are unmongoosery. Mongoosery. Originally, he started out kind of razzing the family, bullying them, teasing them, getting at them, but it would slowly become more and more friendly towards them. So in the beginning, he'd do stuff like compare the father to a Dickens character and saying his head resembled an onion. And he would, when he was upset by the family, he would threaten them, say things like, "I could kill you, but I won't." But I won't.
He's kind of a jerk.
He's kind of a jerk, a little scamp.
Yeah, really.
A guy.
He's sassy.
Yeah. He would spy on the mother while she was undressing.
Oh my god.
At one point, listing off. She knew this because he would list off the articles of clothing as she took them off. So she'd take off her shirt. He's like, "There goes your shirt." Take off her, camisole. He's like, "There goes your camisole." Take off her skirt. "There goes your skirt." Stuff. And she's just like, "Leave me alone."
I would be so uncomfortable.
So he sort of became more friendly over time. Mm-hmm. But he supposedly lived in the rafters, and he became a bit of a family member, a strange family member of the Irving family. And he took a particular liking to the 13-year-old daughter, Vori. He would protect her and would hang around her, follow her around. He was often heard near her. Mm-hmm. And so some of the things he would get up to was he would joke and gossip and, like I said earlier, poke fun at the family, much like an old woman on the porch. It's like, Jimmy's head looks like an onion.
Oh, gosh.
I just imagine just a very elderly mongoose in a rocking chair, because he is 83. Just rocking back and forth. Your head looks like an onion.
Zero chill.
No, this mongoose has no chill. Chill is out the window. He doesn't know the meaning of it. So at one point, the father, James Irving, got just so fed up with James that with Jeff. James got fed up with Jeff. Mm-hmm. And he decided, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to get rid of this mongoose. This annoying, talking, snarky, wife spying on, bullying mongoose. So he set out traps for him. He saw something that he thought might have been Jeff, and he started shooting at it.
Oh shit.
He left out poison, and Jeff was very upset about this. He did ingest the poison, supposedly. Keep in mind, everything I'm saying is supposedly from what the Irvings had said. But when he got poisoned, he screamed late at night for like 20 minutes. Just like screaming and screaming and screaming his head off. And after all this, he disappeared for a while. I mean, I can't blame him, but he did come back. Mm-hmm. And when he'd come back, he exclaimed, I am a ghost in the form of a weasel come to haunt you. To which James responded, haunt away, you have come to the right place and the right people.
Ooh, so he's like clapping back now.
Yeah, James is like, oh, two can play at that game. Mm-hmm. Two can play at that, bud.
If only I knew what this damn weasel looked like, I would throw some insults at you too.
We kind of get into that later.
Oh, okay.
So over the years that he was haunting there, he was haunting for almost 9 years.
Wow.
Which I think is interesting, given that they have a lifespan of 10 to 17 years. That top range is in captivity. Mm-hmm. But so he's haunting for about the lifespan of a mongoose.
Right.
Which I think is interesting. But so over the course of this time, he would move objects, he would throw them, he would eat the Irving's food. I did read that he would often avoid bread and the fat from animals. Like he wouldn't eat bacon fat, just like the lean of the bacon. So he seemed to be, I guess, health conscious. He has to. Nobody can see him, but he has to keep that figure.
No carbs and no fat.
Yeah, he has to keep that figure. He was known for eating cookies and chocolate, though.
Oh,
so
not the best.
Personal preferences. And he'd tell the Irvings what he ate without them having to ask. He'd be like, "Oh, by the way, I ate all of your peaches. You're out of peaches. You might want to get some more." So
he's doing it so they'll go get more for him.
I figure. I guess. So some of the other things he would do is he would kill animals. I read somewhere that he killed a lot of rabbits. Various estimates ranged between 100 to over 200 rabbits.
Oh, wow.
And one source said they appeared to be, and I quote, strangled by tiny hands.
So he's not even killing them with his teeth. He's strangling them with little mongoose hands.
Kill the rabbit, kill the rabbit, kill the rabbit. tiny baby mongoose hands. And he would act as mouse pest control. He learned a lot
that's nice at least.
Yeah, I mean, I guess rabbits could be a pest if you're on a farm.
Yeah.
But he learned a lot of songs and nursery rhymes and would sing them back to the family, unfortunately at all hours of the night. And he would wake people up when they were going to oversleep, which is nice. Mm-hmm. It's good and bad. He rattles the bedsteads at night, but he's also like, hey, I know I kept you up, but you're going to be late. Wake up.
God, he's simultaneously, like, sweet and also just a jackass, like, all in one.
Reminds me of some people I know.
Oh, really?
Like I said earlier, Jeff got a special liking to the daughter Vori, at one point even throwing stones at bullies, and who had nicknamed her the Dalby Spook. Dalby was the area where they were, and a lot of people were calling Jeff the Dalby spook. Because instead of a mongoose, they're like, well, that's a spook. It's like a spirit, a ghost, a creature of mischief. But a lot of her classmates were like bullying her and being like, well, you're the Dalby spook. You know, you're spooky, you're scared, like, you're doing all of this, blaming her, but Jeff was very protective and, like, threw stones at them at one point.
Interesting. So, like, other people are experiencing things other than the Irving family.
I don't have it in here, there's so much to this story that I couldn't include in an episode, but there were people that would come to the house from around town that would come to take a look at him and would be like, hey, what's all this about? And would, like, hear him talking. Or there were a couple people that claimed to have seen him, would see him around, and just his shenanigans kind of became notorious around town, and people, like, on the island, and people knew of him. And so they, like I said, they nicknamed him the Dalby Spook, because the sort of area they were in was called Dalby. But yeah, so like I said, some people had seen him.
Seen the mongoose form?
Seen the mongoose form.
Okay.
No one saw much of him. No one got much of a prolonged look at him. Just kind of flashes here and there.
Okay.
Enough to be like, well, that could be something. I think that's something. But there was one recorded photo of him taken by the daughter Vori. It's not a great photo. I don't have it pulled up, but if you could, I'll post this on the Instagram, but if you can look up Jeff the Talking Mongoose photo and then go to images, there's like a lot of drawings and stuff, but there's some black and white photos of kind of like a skunk looking guy.
I see drawings. Oh yeah, there's a photo.
Yeah, so that's supposedly the photo that she had taken of Jeff. It seemed like he kind of had a lot of slightly morphing forms, because the parents at one point saw him and described him as being yellow with a spotted tail. Someone described him as looking similar to a Manx tailless cat. When asked what he looked like, Jeff never quite really said, and he never quite said what he was. He said he was an earthbound spirit, a ghost in the form of a weasel. And one quote he has here says, I am a freak. I have hands and I have feet, and if you saw me, you'd faint. You'd be petrified, mummified, turned into stone or a pillar of salt. But even though nobody saw him much, there was evidence of him around the place. There was the food being eaten, the strangled rabbits. They found a sort of nest in the attic, and in the attic there was a ornament that appeared to be of Indian origin, like from India.
Oh, interesting.
Which I think is interesting, given that he said he was from India, you know? Wonder if it's like he was connected to this object, or he just saw it and was like, I'm taking this. It reminds me of home. But I thought that was an interesting little detail that they had mentioned. There's one drawing that he made. He supposedly did a self-portrait of himself at one point. It's like a line drawn sort of thing. I'll try and remember to put that up on the Instagram as well.
The one where he almost looks like a squirrel?
Yeah, where he's like long and slender with like intense eyebrows for some reason.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
it looks like he's wearing fake eyelashes.
Jeff said Yas Queen. He said slay before it was cool. So with all of this news getting out and stuff, it kind of spread around, and paranormal investigators found out about it. They came to the island. One parapsychologist by the name of Nandor Fodor, which just marvelous name.
I love that name.
Marvelous name.
Nandor Fodor.
It's a fake sounding name, but also it's marvelous. I think he was like Norwegian born, but raised in America or something, like from America or something. I don't rightly remember. But he came to the house in February of 1937, and he purportedly caught some glimpses, but not enough to be sure, of Jeff. Fodor ditched the theories of it being a poltergeist, because poltergeists were invisible. And he suggested that it was instead the psychic manifestations of someone in the family.
Interesting. So it's kind of similar to what happened with Bella Witch.
Yeah, so he suggested maybe it was the father, because a lot of the things of like being protective over the daughter, you know, that's
And
a fatherly thing.
He's the one that first
He's the
heard
first one that
voices, right?
talked to him.
Okay.
And a lot of the languages Jeff knew, James also knew.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, well, maybe it's also a product of Vori, because, you know, she's a preteen girl.
Right.
She must have ghosts in her system or
Yeah,
something.
the whole thing with adolescence.
And he put a Freudian spin on it and was like, it's because she's in a strict household and she's a pubescent girl and sex.
Okay. Sure.
Because that makes so much sense, and it seems like a lot of other people were thinking the same thing of, yeah, buddy, that makes sense. Sure. So Fodor never ended up talking to Jeff. Even though he was there for the longest, there was a number of other investigators that were there here and there for a few days. But he was there for, I read a few places, almost a week.
Did you know if the other investigators talked to Jeff?
I have two of the other investigators coming up in a second.
Okay.
But so he never really talked to Jeff. He caught, like I said, he's caught some glimpses. They was like, well, maybe that could be. But he didn't outrightly disbelieve in Jeff's existence.
Mm-hmm.
And he even wrote Jeff a goodbye letter, which, like I said earlier, with the reading the newspaper, he could read. And Nandor Fodor wrote, I'm very disappointed that you did not speak to me. I believe you're a very good and generous mongoose. And he also said, I brought you chocolates and biscuits. Which I just think that's wholesome and sweet.
Yeah, that is cute. You knew his favorite foods.
Yeah, he was like, here, I brought you some sweet treats. I think you're good. You didn't talk to me, but I would think you're good. And there was a movie that was made about this that I found, and every time I was looking up this case, I kept seeing movie reviews for this.
Yeah.
Which I have not watched the movie.
I think Neil Gaiman did the voice for Jeff the Talking Mongoose, and there was this interview where he talked about it, where he was like, yeah, I heard the story of Jeff when I was like a kid, and it was like in this book of like real life ghost stories that I read when I was a kid. And so when they were like, hey, you want to be the voice of Jeff the Talking Mongoose? Neil Gaiman was like, fuck yeah, I do. And I think that's the same movie. I'm not sure, but I would assume
probably.
So.
This was made in
there's only one movie.
2023.
Oh, so it's recent.
Yeah, it's super recent.
Okay.
But yeah, I was looking up. It was all stuff like that. I want to watch this movie. It does look like it is a star-studded cast. And all of the reviews are either people that know the case and are like, this is great, they did great justice to the case, or people who don't know the case and are like, what is going on here?
Is the movie that you're talking about Nandor Fodor and the Talking Mongoose?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I kept finding stuff about this, and it was so hard to sift through, because I kept, like, every other article I found, like, half the articles were from 2023 being like, this movie that just came out, I bet you didn't know it was based on a true story. Like, half of the things I
want to
found.
watch it so bad now. Yeah, Neil Gaiman's quoted. He says, I want to watch it so bad. But Neil Gaiman's quote, he says, I hope very much I have managed to do the mysterious mongoose justice. So, guess we'll see.
We shall see.
Oh,
we're doing a movie night after this. Maybe we could add it to the other movie we're watching. Do a themed movie. Paranormal movie.
Honestly,
movie night. Do two movies depending on the time.
You find. I wonder where it's at.
I saw it on Tubi. It's on Tubi, I think.
I don't have Tubi, but that sounds delightful.
I might. Let me see. Where can we watch this? Because if there's other weird people, they might want to watch it too. The Roku channel. I have the Roku channel. Amazon Prime. I might have to pay for it.
Okay, I might have to buy it or rent it on there.
But yeah, if anybody wants to watch it, I have not seen it. But let me see here.
So when did this case take place again?
31 to 40 something. It's like 9 years.
Wow, so it's crazy. So like almost 100 years later, we're making this movie about it. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, so That's Nandor Fodor's involvement in this. You were asking about some of the other investigators.
Yeah.
And there were 2 men, Harry Price and R.S. Lambert. I couldn't find...
Those are very American names. Except for Lambert could be English.
They were, I think Price was a British investigator, and then Lambert was a writer for the BBC.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I'm sure if I did more digging, I could have found out what RS stood for, but I kind of don't care about him. Because he's kind of a...
Richard Stein Lambert.
Rambert Stanbert Lambert.
That one's so much better.
So Harry Price and Rambert Stanbert Lambert came from the mainland of England to the island. But just as they arrived, Jeff went missing again. And the Irvings had suggested that maybe he was just hiding and listening to the investigators. He didn't want to get involved. He was kind of wary of them. They heard some noises here and there, but Price later wrote that he thought that maybe Jeff just wasn't in a talking mood. He just wasn't. He's like, I invited him to throw things at me, make some noise, which kind of sounds like a early Ghost Bro. Come at me, Jeff. Come at me.
It sounds like
throw the axe at
where
me.
He's at the Lizzie Borden house and he's like, drop the axe on me. Drop the axe on me.
Yeah, Harry Price is the original Baggins.
OG Ghost Bro.
OG Ghost Bro. Paranormal instigator. Eat my bacon, Lean. Eat my bacon. Eat my bacon, Jeff. Throw something at me. Throw something at me, Jeff.
I fucking dare you.
I dare you. And now Price has to wear glasses because he saw Jeff. No, he did not actually see Jeff. They didn't hear him. They heard lots of stories about him, mostly just about him hanging around the farmhouse, about Jeff venturing out. Apparently, I read somewhere that he rode the bus. He would say that he rode the bus. Jeff would ride the bus.
He's like, I took the bus down to this town today. Had a delightful evening.
One of the bus drivers actually started putting out traps. From the source I read, was like, there's something on my bus, I'm putting out traps. And they were able to correspond that, like, oh, this is the bus you were riding. This is the bus that's putting out traps. Wait, they're the same bus. It was something that the Irvings had put together. But Harry Price and, was it Rambert Stanbert Lambert? Were starting to, because they didn't see him, they were starting to feel annoyed and there's a whole hoax. They're being taken for a ride. They were fed up. They accused the daughter Vori of having ventriloquism skills.
Yeah, I saw a newspaper article about that.
You're a ventriloquist, or you guys are making stuff up, this, that, and the other. But they couldn't outwardly prove it. They were just like, I think there's a hoax here going on, but I'm not sure what it is. And they even suggested that they had been making up this hoax for so long that the Irvings started to believe their own hoax. And they were like, well, maybe the daughter's been hoaxing this for all this time, but at this point it had been going on for 4 years. And they were like, either she's really smart or these parents are dumb as shit. Because they haven't figured it out after 4 years.
Yeah.
So they're just trying to figure out, they couldn't outwardly prove it. They'd heard some things from people around the town. They kind of just got fed up and were like, well, I think this is all bullshit, but we can't say anything. We can't outwardly prove it. After they left, Jeff did return and had claimed that he was quiet because the people didn't believe in him. Instead of proving them wrong, he was just like, well, they didn't believe, so I just dipped out. I didn't want to, don't want to fight a losing battle. No, I'm real. I'm not someone's ventriloquist skills. I don't see your lips moving. That's ventriloquism.
Interesting.
So I thought that was interesting, which, I don't know. I think it's interesting. Every time investigators came, he clammed up.
Right.
But people that weren't investigating, like people around the town, the family, they would have sightings and see stuff, and there was evidence and stuff.
Right, so none of the investigators that came heard from him.
No,
Interesting.
Fodor had seen glimpses of him. No one had really heard him. There was some boys in the town that weren't investigators but had come to say hi to him and would talk to him, and then found out that he wasn't. Like, they heard his voice and then had found out that he wasn't just a boy across the, on the other side of the fence or whatever that they couldn't see. So it was never people that were with the expressed intention of, I'm going to crack this case. They were just like, wait, what's going on here? Let me just peek over here. Let me see what's going on. So I think that's interesting.
Right, because it could be like one side is like, this is something real, and then when somebody wants to scrutinize and investigate it, Jeff's just like, nope, I'm out of here, I'm good. Or it could be, on the other hand, like, this is like a community that's kind of just, I don't know, maybe all collectively believing in something, almost like a placebo, or like they're just having fun with it, and then when investigators come, they don't actually experience anything. Like, it could really go both
it could
ways.
be we're having fun with this. It could be like a Tulpa situation if they created this thing. If you want to go with this is a hoax, Jeff just conveniently started being quiet whenever investigators came around because the family that was hoaxing this didn't want people to find out that you guys could blow this apart easily, that this is a hoax.
Right.
But also I can understand if this was genuine, being like, well, I don't like feeling doubted and feeling, so I'm just gonna piss off, and this is your fight, not mine.
Right.
I just thought that was interesting. And given other things that Jeff has done, I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a petty, spiteful thing. You know?
Yeah.
He's like calling people onion heads and like stealing their food and throwing rocks at people.
Right.
Like, he's helpful, but he's also like, nah.
You won't catch me alive.
You'll never catch me. So over the roughly 9 years of Jeff being around, he, like I said earlier, he wouldn't quite say what he was. Sometimes a ghost in the form of a mongoose. At one point, he said he was the result of Hindu magic, which is interesting, saying he's from India. A lot of the articles that I'd read about it, though, did seem to be like, it was very playing into Indian stereotypes at the time.
So it probably wasn't actually from that culture. It was just...
Yeah, or maybe it was this. If it was from that culture, it was, this is what we understand, and we're applying our stereotypes to this non-corporeal being from India.
Right.
We're going to be racist against the spirit.
Way.
Yeah. So, it could be that, some people with the name Spook, nicknaming him Spook, had sort of put him in the form of a fae. The term spook is similar to what Spock, I think it's like Spock, something like that, and Puka, all those different terms like that of spirit, mischievous creature. Have you ever read the play or watched it, Harvey, the 7 foot tall white rabbit? It's like a play about a puka that's a 7 foot tall. It gives off a lot of that energy of pulling off little weird tricks. Nobody quite knows, but then you get a glimpse of him. It does very much seem when I was researching this, I kept thinking of that play Harvey.
Right.
I think it's Harvey. No,
I don't know, but I understand what you're talking about.
But yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Some people, the Irvings, claimed that he was actually a mongoose, and he fell into the category of clever animals, which are do you know the sideshow attraction of clever animals?
I don't think so.
So it was this whole thing sort of around, it sort of started dying off with the freak show attractions in the 50s. It started dying off, but it was animals that were oh, this is the smartest pig around, this is the smartest horse, it's a talking horse, or this pig can count. This pig can do these tricks. Like you'd be like, oh, how many people are in this room? And then it would like tap its foot that many times.
But a lot of those were definitely people like faking stuff, right?
Or someone training it, or like probably with the talking animals, something like that. Or like, this animal can tell the future. There's like cases of horses that can tell the future, which, again, another episode whole episode on its own.
Yeah, that sounds really fascinating.
But so some people think that he was an actual mongoose who just learned to speak, which kind of, I don't quite believe that, because there's never been a case of a mongoose learning to talk.
Right.
But with the way that it went from animal noises to like a baby gurgling noise, and they had to teach it language, I can see where that conclusion comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of people say that he's a cryptid. He's a poltergeist, or a cryptid. He's an unknown animal of sorts.
Right.
He's a mongoose with hands and feet who can talk. Or he's a poltergeist because he moves things around and causes havoc and stuff. Which, I can see that argument as well. Some people, like I said with Nandor Fodor, claim that it was Vori being a pubescent girl.
Mm-hmm.
Or some people said he was like a spirit animal. But being a spirit and an animal doesn't make you a spirit animal, but what do I know?
Yeah, interesting.
They were like, he was a spirit animal protector of Vori. But if he's a protector spirit, he's wreaking a lot of havoc. I understand with the throwing the rocks at the other kids, but why would a spirit protector be rattling your bed in the middle of the night? Why would it be stealing all of your peaches? And
yeah, my thing is like, so it's eating their food. So if it was just a spirit, I don't think they need food.
He needs food, and he needs sustenance. And there's like cases of him like peeing all over the floor. They'd like piss him off, and they'd see like a little stream of water coming out of, like a stream of liquid coming out of the wall, or they'd find like puddles. Like an incontinent dog. Just like they'd piss him off and like, Jeff peed on the floor again.
Like cats do that, where if you do something they don't like, they're like, all right, fuck you, I'm gonna piss on your clothes.
Yeah. Which I think I think that's interesting. I mean, there's plenty of cases of ectoplasm with ghosts and phantom blood and blah, blah, blah. But the fact that he's eating and peeing, and I'm assuming other things, and like, I think that implies some form of like corporealism.
Yeah, like a physical body of some
Yeah,
sort.
even if it's not permanently physical. Like maybe he's possessing a mongoose?
Maybe he's a changeling.
Maybe, because that would fit with the Fae. So, to wrap this all up, what happened to Jeff? So he, at the end of all of this, he started slowly showing up less and less and less. Disappearing for longer and longer stretches of time. He's like, okay, I'm gonna go run off and do something, and disappear for a long time, for like maybe a week, and then he'd be like, okay, he'd come back, and then, okay, I'm gonna run off and do something. Disappear for a week and a half, and so on, and like longer and longer, until he just kind of disappeared fully. And this was around the same time that James Irving died in 1945. And also, Margaret and Vori moved out then. They couldn't keep up with the house. They had to sell it at a loss. They sold it at quite a loss for the time. It was in disrepair. They couldn't keep up with it. And the person that bought the house afterwards had said that she claimed to have shot and killed Jeff. But when the picture was shown to the Irvings, the remaining Irvings, they said that it wasn't Jeff. It was too big. It was black and white, not yellow. It was all wrong. It wasn't Jeff at all. And Vori was definite, like, this is not Jeff. What you shot, not Jeff. And up until her death in 2005, Vori stuck to her story of saying that Jeff was not a hoax and she did not create Jeff. Jeff was a being in his own right. So all that being said, what do you think Jeff the talking mongoose was? Was he a cryptid, a ghost, poltergeist, or just an extra clever mongoose?
Ooh, I don't think I have a definitive answer on this one. This is really difficult for me to pinpoint. I think the spirit idea is interesting because it does seem almost like a poltergeist, but like a poltergeist that can either have some sort of physical body or a poltergeist has deposited itself into like this mongoose.
Yeah, I like that idea that he's possessing the body of a mongoose.
Right. Yeah, I think that...
Or like possessing animals.
Is real and not a hoax. Like if this is a legitimate thing that is some sort of like crazy supernatural thing, then this random like spirit that's in the body of a mongoose probably makes the most sense.
Yeah, that's not something that I've seen come up. I've seen like
really?
A ghost in the spirit, the ghost in the form of a mongoose, but not a ghost possessing a mongoose or a weasel.
See, that's the thing that I initially
That's the thing
thought
that would make the most sense. And also, given that it would be, if it's possessing him, it needs a form
right
to take it, and it has to fall into his lifespan. Mm-hmm. He was haunting for about 9 years.
Right.
You know, they can live usually in the wild, about 10 years. Maybe a bit longer if they're well cared for. I'm assuming because he was being fed and stuff like that, he was being well cared for,
right.
Might have a longer lifespan. So if he did come from Africa or where, like he traveled, he possessed this mongoose here and traveled for some reason to the Isle of Man, the timeline would make sense. He would have a wild, maybe he hopped a boat. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Who knows how a mongoose travels? Like, that would make sense. Mm-hmm. He got there, he spent some time there. Maybe he died about the time, like he started spending less and less time there, and then he died.
Right. He started getting older. And
yeah, like the body of the mongoose started getting older, and he had to find something else to possess, and he was like, well, they're moving out. Instead of possessing something else because they were moving out, he might have been like, well, I'm just going to move on now. Mm-hmm. Because he had that connection to Vori, he was like, well, she's moving out, she's going, I guess I should also go. You know?
So we don't know if the spirit went along.
So like, maybe the spirit went somewhere else.
Like passed on with him, or if it's still on this earthly plane, but somewhere else.
Maybe we don't know. Somewhere there's a story of like Jeff the talking dachshund. The Incredible Mr. Ed.
Well, that's really interesting. I had heard of Jeff the Talking Mongoose, but I'm notoriously bad at remembering things, so it was nice to have the refresher, and I feel like I'm going to, for whatever reason, it's going to stick with me more this way, because I feel like last time it was confusing to me for whatever reason.
I feel like I was very confusing. I was like, this, and then I'm jumping all over the timeline.
No,
I was very all over the place.
That made sense to me.
Yeah, I heard... So I came across this on a podcast episode. I'd only ever heard that one podcast episode about it.
Yeah.
I've seen some others, but I haven't really listened to it. And it just stuck with me because I was like, because it's similar to so many hauntings, but also so different. It stuck with me.
It's very unique. I do wonder if Jeff the Talking Mongoose did get way more popular after that movie came out, though.
I think it got popular with that, and I think a lot of podcasts made it more popular, because from my research, outside of the Isle of Man, it wasn't really known, and then a couple podcasts did stuff on it, and then they did that movie, and it just boomed. But yeah, I thought this was an unusual episode.
All right. Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. Thank you for listening. If you liked it, please rate the podcast and share it with the weird people in your life. Follow us on Instagram at whataboutweird.pod, where we often share pictures related to the episodes. If you have any topic suggestions or personal weird stories, please DM us or email us at whataboutweirdpod@gmail.com.
And always remember
to ask about the weird.
Bye for now.